horse drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Fencer in the morning continued to drift. He was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Buttons.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
And a very big warm welcome to the Bar Stewards Inquiry Sunday Sermon. My name's Lee Keys of systembet.co.uk, and joining me for an action-packed show with some brilliant questions from yourselves. We do thank you for these. They make the show, and we're very excited to be discussing them. So joining me is John Lang from John Joe's Blogspot, my partner in crime. Good evening, John.
Evening, Al.
Yeah, and also, last but not least, now a permanent fixture due to his fanboys on YouTube. It's Lord Malvo Chris, as he likes to be fondly known. Won't give his full name in case his employer gives him what for. After opening his mind on this pod.
Quite right.
Yes. So, welcome to the show, boys.
Do you know, we received just short of 300 letters requesting that we make Chris a regular part of the show.
Yeah.
And really, anybody that will write nearly 300 letters deserves to be part of the show.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. Letters, winning the lottery keeps sending them. Yeah, quite right. Very good.
Yeah. A lot of these user accounts popping up saying how good he is, etc.
That's the bizarre mainly.
Yeah.
That's where they come from.
He's got more bot accounts than the fucking Tory pack.
Yeah, exactly.
And China.
Right. All run from Russia as well. Yeah, all the troll accounts. Yeah. Yeah, make America great again, I say.
Good stuff. Right. On to the first subject of the day, which is obviously a review of yesterday's racing. And obviously, I didn't think it was a great spectacle, obviously, because I didn't back any winners. But certainly, I'm not really a fan of this absolutely terrible ground where it's all slow motion finishes and they're all knackered. I don't think it's a great spectacle for racing. And I think, if you've got casual race watchers, say on ITV, and they're watching them absolutely legless on the run-ins, I don't think it really sells the sport, chaps. What do we think?
Well, personally, I'd rather watch a fire at an orphanage than carry on like that.
Yeah, I mean, there were two finishers I think that probably broke people's hearts yesterday. Certainly, it did me. But Topville Ben in the Rendlesham. You can't believe it's got beat 13 lengths. It's like it's travelling. It's clear of Holstone, and you're thinking, well, yeah, it's done it, and then ends up getting slammed 13 lengths as it stops to a walk on the running, and then poor old Bristol Demai. Everyone's thinking, that's it. It's 5 clear, 2 out. Yeah, surely.
Did he go in running?
Do you know? I'm not sure because I didn't. That's the one race. I was that sick of Haydock by then. That's the one race I didn't bother in running. So I wasn't even watching the screen. I was just watching the race. But I would imagine, you'd imagine fairly short. Topville Ben, I backed and I did lay out, so it didn't cost me anything. But I felt sorry for the guy that had took all my 1.27. Topville Ben, the race before in the Rendlesham. I mean, it's just not great spectacle. Like I said, I like to see the best horse winning, and on both occasions, I'm not so sure the best horses ended up winning. Would you agree with that?
The best horse probably didn't get round.
Well, yeah, exactly.
No.
I mean that's the thing all day. It's like I said, I'm not a fan of. It's sort of reviewing these races, but. There's one monster. I know it won at even money and probably Blogger was all over it and stuff like that. But Hillcrest, if ever I was impressed with a horse, it's this one going forwards in terms of he won the Albert Bartlett Prestige, chaps, the 350 at Haydock, and what impressed me was he didn't lift his legs at any of the hurdles. He couldn't be arsed to jump there. He's that big. He just can't be asked to jump the hurdles, and yet he still powers round, gallops all day. He's 7 now. I don't understand why they're even over hurdles. I mean, I just think it's a waste. I mean, this lad wants to be over fences because I think he'll be £20 better over fences. I think he can be like top class over fences. I really do. I don't know what they're doing. Why would you waste time over hurdles now? It's boring. The horse gets bored. You could see that in running. He didn't even want to lift his legs. He thought, oh, what's this? Another plank of wood in the way. I just think make him concentrate, put some fences in the way. What horse this could be over fences, Hillcrest. Very exciting, but again, he's already 7, so...
Where are they going next time with him, have they said?
You what, John, sorry?
Where are they going next time, have they said?
I've not read anything. Obviously he's entered up at Cheltenham, but I'll be amazed if he turns up there after that slog.
Yeah.
Why would you... So what are we on? 19th of February, so... He's got less than 4 weeks for the either the Ballymore or just over 4 weeks for the Albert Bartlett. But I wouldn't be arsed running there. What's the point? Again, people can ruin good horses, and I just think I'd sack hurdles off now. It's just a waste of time. You're just wasting time. You could be over fences.
Here's one for the 1.01 backers. How many winners have you trained? Right, they know what they're doing. These people, they're experts. Go with it. Christ, there you are. My punters have all copped on that one now, so we'll be eating chips with gravy tonight on the 1.01.
Well, just reading a quote now while we're online. Henry Daly's actually said, "You would think Albert Bartlett would be the target, or perhaps the Sefton at Aintree." Basically. Right, so he's actually stated before, this is Henry Daly, who has trained a lot of decent chasers. Was it Bacchanal he trained?
Can't think of any, can you?
Bacchanal.
Yeah.
Bacchanal, I think, won the Feltham, the Cowtoe Star at Kempton. And he's quoted as saying, "My measuring stick goes to 18 hands and it doesn't get to the top of Hillcrest." So what the hell are you doing? Running this horse so long over hurdles. I think, I know he's probably been quite backward and raw, hence he only made his debut in a bumper last winter, at his age. So I get that. So fine, do it for this season. Don't burn him out. I just think the thing is, what are they going to do as an 8-year-old? What's he going to, he's going to run in the Royal and Sun Alliance next year as an 8-year-old, then try and win a Gold Cup at 9-year-old? I just get on with it. Get on with it. Get on with fencing. And he's a superstar of fences, this lad. But what do I know? Like you say, how many winners have I trained?
Henry Daly.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, Ascot. Anything that took your eye this day? Obviously, I tell you what, that Good Risk at All that won the handicap hurdle. Crikey. It's won 9 lengths. Off 127, you'd say that looked 150, didn't it? I thought 150. Would you say? Put on that performance.
It's tidy.
Yeah, obviously the ground exacerbates things, and you can. It's like when an horse dots up 30 lengths at Foss Lash. You can't go to bed with it, but he's got the engine from the bumpers, and he was always going to be decent if he jumped, and he jumped very well.
You're just worried that what you would have classed as the only 2 dangers seriously underperformed on the ground, didn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is French bred, so
yeah,
you could find this horse is an entirely different proposition off a revised mark in, say, 3 weeks' time when the ground's riding noticeably different.
Yeah, end of the day, Christopher Wood was second, and Christopher Wood is what he is. Though he has changed from the death camp Paul Nicholls to Venetia Williams, so maybe he was running at peak. John's favourite trainer, and I'm saying that horse could go a long way in handicap hurdles, but the handicapper's going to have his say there. I think Jim McGrath was on at the races saying that he thinks he'll go up about 9 or 10 pounds, but I don't know. I think he might go up more than that, but we'll see. Fakir Dairies put in a good round of jumping and ended up winning the Betfair Ascot Chase. Don't think we learned anything there for the Ryanair. He had the run of the race for me. They went very hard up front. Obviously, they burnt off Dashel Drasher. Everything.
Hard winning on slop as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't think we've learned anything towards Cheltenham, to be honest, for anything on the Saturdays, unless anyone's spotted anything out the back of the tellies. For maybe some of the handicaps, maybe, but apart from that, I don't think we've learnt anything. It shows how weak the stayers division is at the moment. We've got no class stayers. We've got no 2 milers. We've not got anything. We've got no 2. We're struggling.
The cupboard is bare.
Yeah, it pretty is really. I mean, Edwardstone, I'm a massive fan. That's the Arkle winner for me. But regards to a champion chaser, obviously Shishkin, he'll do well in that. But the 2 mile hurdle division, I mean, Honeysuckle may as well. Is it a lap of honour, John?
It is for me.
Yeah.
And if it's not, the danger will come from Ireland anyway.
Yes, indeed. Right, okay. So that's enough about yesterday. Just we'll touch on something that happened today, which was the Laura Morgan yard landing a big plunge up at Musselburgh, and obviously 2 very well laid out horses. Well done to that team, owned by Alan Rogers, dirty Alan Rogers, the former Nottingham Forest player. Absolutely filled his boots today as Alan. The cash there flowing out of his pockets. He's absolutely unbelievable. He must have won fortunes, Alan Rogers. Champ is Real was the first one of his double. That was £11 out of the handicap and went off 5-4. And, that certainly set the ball rolling. And I think the more impressive one, even though that did it okay, was the second one, which was Clear the Runway. I thought that was very impressive. That he could have won by about 40 lengths on that if he'd have pushed the button 3 out. Again, we need to discuss, is this good for racing? Now, obviously, there's lots of people that love gambles, and why not? I've had Twitter debates on it before, and people's fallen out with me over this. Gambles, are they good? Are they good for racing in general, chaps? I mean, is this good? Chris, I'll come to you. What's your thoughts on a good old-fashioned gamble?
Well, I mean, it's good to see. I mean, I think from a purely selfish perspective, I would, if I had the cash to buy horses and the patience to keep them in training, I'd do exactly the same. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite. But the gambles are allowed because the system allows people to gull the handicap, right? Whatever the BHA say about the resources they're pouring into the regulatory aspect, the fact that these punts are allowed to continue, people are going to take advantage of the system. So it's inevitable. While you've got a pretty poor police force or a complete absence of proper stewarding and regulation, they're going to do it. And I think it's getting worse, actually. I'm not saying it's back to the bad old days of, Betfair Eddie and all that kind of stuff. But there's more punts landed this season than I can remember in previous seasons because the system allows that to happen. So is it good for the sport overall? No, of course it isn't. Public can't have confidence in the game when, horses that are out the back of the telly are dotting up with the application of cash. So, but from a personal perspective, it's good to see. But overall, no, it's crap, isn't it?
John, would you come in on this? What's your thoughts on? Do we are we overcritical sometimes? I mean, look at for example, JP McManus will do it. The bigger owners sometimes will do it. Alan Rogers obviously successful in his own right, and his playing career. He's obviously the smaller end of the owner spectrum, but are we being unfair to say Alan Rogers to say this is not really cricket?
No, I don't think we're being unfair. But that said, the system lends itself to it. I mean, for me, the reason it lends itself to it is the woeful standard of handicapping in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, you can run a horse 4 or 5 times out the back over a woefully inadequate trip and watch the mark come down £2 to £3 for each run. Now, if that was a legit run and you're taking it at face value, you're dropping the horse, so you're saying it's done something where you can equate a rating to it, you should be dropping the bloody thing £45.
Yeah.
If that's a legitimate run. If not, leave the bloody thing alone and make them be competitive before you revise that figure.
I don't know if you've noticed, but if you look at the Irish handicapper, he probably has to be a bit more shrewd. And if you look at whoever does the handicap hurdles and chases over there, I've seen horses at JPs that will say win sort of 18 months ago, and then they just have him float up after float up.
Yeah,
they've had about 7 runs and they've dropped £5.
Yeah,
you know.
and rightly so.
As if to say, well, we know what you're doing, so we're not
playing ball. And really, I mean, he's lucky at dropping them £5 in 7 runs.
Mm.
You know, because I mean, I'm not a fan of this revising the mark all the time. If they've had their balls out and they're showing you what they can do, that's what they can do. Yeah, you know, don't be dropping them down again. You know, I mean, let the trainer try and improve the bloody things, not ass about out the back and stitching everybody up.
But I think in reality, whatever they're dropped, I think that's almost irrelevant. I think any of these horses have got so much in hand in terms of their ability that giving the horses a float up is less about getting them dropped 2 or 3 pounds, but more in terms of concealing their ability. I think a lot of these horses could land punts, been dropped nothing. But, you know, they run them 4 or 5 times to give the illusion that the horses have no ability to get a price. Yeah, and it's a bonus if, you know, you get £5 or £6 off the back. They can push the button at any time. I think that's a bit of a smoke screen. I think the float up is there just to hide the ability rather than to benefit from a reduced handicap mark.
Yeah. I mean, it brings us on to handicap marks, and Declan Carroll, not the trainer. He's a listener, and he's come with a good question. And he said, you can debut in a handicap chase off a hurdle mark, but you can't run a horse in a handicap chase off an all-weather mark. Now, I agree with this because they are 2 very different disciplines. There's absolutely no correlation for me between a hurdle mark and a chase mark. It's probably closer than probably an all-weather mark. But nevertheless, I do find it extraordinary that over in the UK, that obviously you can just switch to fences and, you know, from a mark of, 98 over hurdle straight to fences. And it's a different discipline, and then you might be 20 or 30 pound well in. I know that's good for the owner or good for connections, but why is there no sort of like assessment here? Because a lot of these gambles that are taking place, the same with Alan Rogers' horses today, they've already shown form in points, point to point. So you know for a fact they're probably better than especially the first one, where it was given a ridiculous 78, was it? I know it was. They ran £11 wrong and still won. So that tells you that they were just laughing at the mark they got. So that's probably the fault of the handicapper. But nevertheless, should possibly we not look at point form in terms of handicap marks? Why does it have to be under rules to give a handicap mark? If you're running point to points, then surely that's, although it's not licensed in terms of, you know, proper horse racing, it's still a guide. It's a better guide than what you're going to get being 300 to 1, 125 to 1, and 66 to 1 in 3 novice hurdles over 2 miles.
Well, I'd deny them a mark that's been 300 to 1 and never been put in a race.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's an awful lot of horses get marks that I would simply deny a mark too. You know, I mean, Prescott would be starting the season with 35 unrated 3-year-olds. If it's down to me, you know.
I think that's it. I think the handicapper should be entitled to ask for evidence. If you, for example, from a flat angle, if you've got a horse by Sea the Stars, you know, out of a Echo of Light mare, and it's run over 6 and 7 furlongs, we know everyone does it, but the point is, I think as a handicapper, you're entitled to ask connections, and that doesn't mean running off 300 days not fit. You know, like when they try the 1.5 miles or the 1.25 miles, it means show me something what you've got.
Well, I mean, it won't wash for me, this, because I mean, they say this about Prescott and all the rest of them. They start these middle distance bred horses off over 6 furlongs because they can't compete. They can compete because your better horses can start over 6. I mean, Case in point, Joker Marmalade, a King George winner, that made debut over 6 furlongs and went off 11 to 4 favourite. Yeah. You know. Now, there's not that much of a golfing ability that these horses couldn't show up in a 6 furlong race. The trick is they're running the buggers half fit.
Yeah. Which then brings a separate subject in an argument for weights, perhaps. You know, horses to be weighed. In terms of, but then you could say with that, well, you've got physical development, horses are growing, getting stronger.
There's nothing wrong with publishing weights, though. What a horse's racing weight was on the day of the race and keeping a record of that. Then it's up to punters what to do with it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of arguments from, in quotation marks, racing insiders, saying, oh, you're giving punters information there that they don't know what to do. Well, some punters will know what they're doing with it, and there should be as much information out there as there can be for those that do. And weights is one that should be out there.
Yeah, I mean, they do it for grounds, and why not? You know, I mean, it's another. Everyone wanted the wind information divulging, and obviously the BHA acted and included like wind ops included for UK racing to be available for punters. But I genuinely think weights are very handy. You know, like you could get a horse's physical development as well. Like you could progress it, saying that, well, this horse is getting bigger, stronger, and it helps with form judgments. But obviously, do they want to really help the punters? It's probably another subject, that one. So good question, that, Declan, in terms of getting us to discuss about handicap marks and where we could improve on that. Twilight on YouTube. Good evening, sir. He says, in Ireland, we have reserves. He said there should be reserves in all big handicaps to have a 24 runner or maximum to safety standards. He says, I know there are problems with numbers for racing in Britain and needs a fixture list overhaul, but basically that's sort of a good idea to have reserves. I'm not so keen on reserves, John. I don't know about you.
I don't mind reserves if they come in ridiculously short in betting. And
well,
I'm quite happy to back them quite a lot of the time in Ireland.
Yeah, I know, I get it, but I mean, again, that kill the morning market?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Let's say one of the reserves has got £20 in hand on the clock and and everyone's waiting for the. I mean, I suppose it just adds another different dynamic to the game where if you were punting, say, early, you wouldn't go in on a certain race. If you do, you know, Willie Mullins had got one in that had bolted up last time, and that's on the reserve list. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I know what Twilight's saying. RE field sizes. The national game as a whole, I think's in a little bit of trouble at the moment for various reasons. We've touched on this in past shows regarding the obsession with Cheltenham and obviously the numbers in decline. I think in racing in general, I genuinely think that we're going to see it over the next few years. Good flat horses are going to be sold to the Far East and et cetera, the Saudi Arabia. You know, they're all popping up now around the world. I mean, John, the Saudis are trying to buy a golf league. I've heard big Phil Mickelson involved and Bryson DeChambeau to rival the PGA Tour. So, you know, things are gonna start moving, and this is where I think the BHA are always slow to react. They always react after it happens rather than foreseeing something that might happen. And I think we're going to see it with numbers over the years in decline through the winter.
Yeah, with Harrington this week in the post, and it was an absolute disgrace. I mean, everything was reactive. She touched on single customer review and the gambling review and some wishy-washy crap about they've been doing their bit behind the scenes. I mean, that's a lot of because they haven't been doing anything. And to come out with crap like that, she was just talking like she was still at the job interview. She's been in post 2 years. She's done jack shit.
Yeah. Right, we'll move on. Good old Gurney on YouTube. He's a good listener, this chap. He's always quite funny with his comments on YouTube. And he wants to touch on what we talked about last week because I think it caused a bit of controversy, Brian Hughes. There's quite a few Brian Hughes fans out there. And he said, question for next time, which Northern jockeys are better than Brian Hughes? I mean, off the top of my head, there's a few I like. Sean Quinlan, I can probably touch on. There's the problem I've got is when I did the stats. As I said, I did the stats for someone on Twitter that we had a little mini debate after last week's pod, and Brian Hughes is just 0.95 actual over expected with first and second favourites. In fact, if you were to lay every Brian Hughes runner that he's ever had first and second favourites, including recently, the trend hasn't died, you'd make 6% on Betfair. You'd be over 200 points in front. Now, that to me says it can only be one of two things. It can only be that Brian Hughes is overrated by the market, or it's simply that Brian Hughes is at it, or Brian Hughes is not that amazing. Or all of the above combined. It's a bad stat. And then someone quoted me Ryan Moore and said, well, Ryan Moore's the same. No, Ryan Moore has got an AE of bang on 1 for fancied runners, i.e. first and second favs. Ryan Moore's got an AE of 1. So despite Ryan Moore's profile, rides for Aidan, Culmore, he's had the stout job. Ryan Moore's done a pretty good job to be at 1, really, because obviously punters are focused on Ryan Moore. And so Brian Hughes has got a statistically terrible record. And I mean, that proves it. You're making 6% blind. Just do it blind, 6%. Keep doing it. Punters seem to love Brian Hughes. And when people ask me about professional punting and so, you have to zig when they're zagging. And that's what the whole job is. Trying to uncover things that people overlook and people overbet. And you do the opposite. And that was my stance. Thoughts, chaps, on Brian, on any alternatives to Brian Hughes out there?
Bugger it now, really.
I think Sean
I just on percentages, Nico de Boinville's slightly better. He's on 23%. Brian Hughes is on 22%. I mean, I think en masse we don't particularly rate Nico, do we?
No. Well, that's it. Everyone laughs at Nico. I mean, Catherine Fry, dear Catherine Fry, who, by the way, we're planning a Cheltenham preview, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And Catherine Fry will be chairing that one. And her favourite jockey is John Joe Jr. For various reasons, because she kind of laughs that he's bouncing up and down in the saddle when he's sat in third place about 2 lengths down with 2 to jump. But yeah, I mean, anyway, Gurney. Statistically, it's possible to lay Brian Hughes blind. I know he rides loads of winners. I know it's hard to crib, but from a value perspective, I don't think you're on value whenever you back a Brian Hughes ridden horse. Moving on for John, some questions. John's absolutely brilliant on the show. Adam Norman. Terrible this from Norman.
Friend of the show.
I mean, he ripped into Richmond on Friday, which is, it's a fair game, but, but I mean, he's now ripping into you, John. And he said, will John ever tip a winner again?
Kick a man while he's down, why don't you?
Terrible this from Norman. I mean, this guy, I like the fella. He's a good judge, blah, blah, blah. In fact, he rescued Saturday for us with Sizable Sam, so we didn't have a wipeout. But didn't you tip an 8-1 chance or something like that the week before?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I did manage to float one the week before, which was just about double the price of Sizable Sam. So, yeah. Shut the fuck up.
That's it, Norman. Fuck off. Anyway, right. And one more entertaining question, which I'm busting to hear the answer. Hear the answer of this is from Councillor Woodman, a Tory councillor, John. Absolute, somebody that you wouldn't piss on, if they're on fire. And
I would if I could piss paraffin.
Anyway, Mr. Woodman says, if John could have dinner with the top brass at the BHA, what principal issue would he raise over the after-dinner mints?
Well, first of all, I'd ask them where they were serving mints and not petit fours. The principal issue really would be the financial plan for racing, because they've never addressed it. adequately in the last 40 years, and they show no intention of doing so. You know my thoughts on it. Racing should have its own exchange, and should be competing with these bookmakers rather than having this insidious gross profits deal that they've got at the moment, which is now the use now of Manta based. Every other sport, you wouldn't find them in league with the bookmakers at all. Racing as an entity is looking for followers of the sport to lose money in order to stay afloat. That is not just immoral, it's utterly, utterly stupid.
That's one of the best comments I've heard you say that. I think that is absolutely spot on. That you are looking for basically fleece people in order to survive. I think
the bigger shafting that punters get, the better the BHA like it. Yeah. Better salaries for them, better bonus.
And I think all three of us can say this. We were brought into this sport to believe that we could follow it because we love it, but we could also make a few quid as well.
And you also felt that those running the sport would try and act in the best interests of the sport. And the last 20 years, that has just eroded as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You've got a load of careerist shitbags that don't have a blind clue, don't want to change the status quo, and they're enthralled to big bookmakers because they do know how to run a business, and they're taking their ideas directly from them.
Fantastic. Brilliant job. Could not put that any better. We'll move on again. So Mark Todd, I'm going to leave this to you two because I think, and just before you start, there's a nice article from the Bearded Jockey. He's a listener of ours, and he's wrote an article on Twitter, very articulate. I thought it was very well put, his point of view, and it's worth a read for anyone that's on Twitter. Go to the Bearded Jockey and look at his article that he's wrote. I think it's quite balanced. But I want to come to you two now regarding Sir Mark Todd. Chris, I'm going to come to you first on what you thought of the video and everything that happened last week, when obviously we'd recorded early and couldn't cover it last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think a dreadful word, but I think the optics are terrible, and it couldn't have come at a worse time for racing in terms of public perception. What I found disappointing was, racing people again rallying to Mark Todd's defence with the age-old sort of criticism as well. How many horses have you trained? You don't know about horses, etc., etc., and being completely blind to how the public, the customers that racing says it wants to attract, would perceive that video. And that's the problem. Racing is completely, again, tone deaf to how it's perceived in the wider community, both in terms of animal welfare and obviously the gambling aspect that we've addressed before. Now, from a personal perspective, look, and I don't know what John's view on this. I've seen worse when I've had shares in horses and gone to, small, relatively unsuccessful yards that in which I've had the odd share. I've seen a lot fucking worse than that. I've seen horses kicked in the guts by the trainer to get it going. On several occasions, a running sort of football kick, and done with the complicity of stable staff who, no one bats an eyelid, because that's how these are working animals, and, to make an omelette, you've got to break eggs. So, although the optics of the Mark Todd thing were terrible, as far as the public's concerned, my view was I've seen a lot worse. So, I think it's sort of a cultural thing, really. It's racing is by its nature really insular, and it's kind of immune from criticism because, well, look, it's the old adage, you don't know what you're looking at. We're horse people, you're not. But we live in a world where that won't wash anymore. So, it's just tone deaf, I think.
Yeah, no, fair point. John?
Well, Todd's clearly a fucking idiot. Well, if he's running a clinic like that, he should be banning mobile phones, banning recording, and all the rest of it. If it's even on his mind that he's going to do something like that. Now, you had Jamie Railton the next day going on Twitter and saying we should all get down on our knees and appreciate the ultimate horseman. Now, bear in mind, the ultimate horseman, prior to Railton's tweet, had already apologised for his fucking actions. You know? So either Todd was lying through his teeth and wasn't sorry at all and remains an ultimate horseman, or Railton hasn't took any notice of Todd's apology.
No.
Because he's saying, no, this is just normal, you know? I mean, if Todd had been carrying a long tom and giving it a crack across the arse with that, I don't think the video had got light of day. I don't think anybody would have done anything. It was the fact that he's picked up a branch and twatted it several times across the arse with a branch. You know, I mean, it's not an appropriate item to be belting a horse with, and you don't need to be an ultimate horseman to know that. I would have, you know, gently suggested from my obvious position of ignorance.
What would you say? I mean, thing is, like you and me know that certain trainers have had to beat horses up, if you like. I mean, because it's all about characters, isn't it? Some horses are just absolute bastards, but I suppose in context of this video, like you say, everyone starts to judge. Did that horse look a bastard? No, it just wouldn't go through water. And it's kind of there's certain times when I know there's been sort of a bit of malpractice going at yards, but it's been for a reason. That
some of them are out and out bastards.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, and I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, some of them would be absolutely untrainable if you didn't get hold of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've known horses like turn around completely from what's the word? How do you put this? I hope some a good hiding, if you like. You know, because that's what some of them actually do need, and I'm sorry if people don't like hearing that, but that's a fact. It's
unpalatable, but that's what goes on, and it saves a lot of horses from Merton sale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where they sell them by the kilo because that's where they're going.
Well, that's it. You saw that documentary, R.E. Swindon, and that's a part of the industry that we don't like sort of bringing out. You know, we always defend racing in terms of the PETA arguments and stuff like that, but there are, like you said, society's moved on, and now we're getting more difficult questions regarding racing and what's acceptable, what isn't. And
the thing is, some of these that are out and out bastards, you still couldn't go out with them if you sold them on. They wouldn't make riding horses. They're out like that.
No.
You know, you couldn't take them riding to the disabled or anything like that, because God help any of them if they got hold of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's lots of stable staff that'll give you stories about horses that you're going in to feed them, change the bedding, and they'll corner you, and they'll, and that's it. You have to show them who's boss. It's all right perception, and people say, and Bearded Jockey also mentions context. He doesn't condone Sir Mark Todd, but he mentions context in the whole debate. In that, if you're a stable staff and you're just doing your job and you're going, you're changing its bedding, you're putting its feet, you're cleaning the box out, and the horse corners you and start, what do? You've got, you don't let the horse be boss. That's the point. You can't talk to them and have reasoned debate like you could a human being. So you have to show them who's boss. Otherwise, you aren't getting out of the stable door. And I've known of several instances like that. So, as I've said, it's all about context. You could show a 10-second video or something where the stable staff might have had to defend himself or herself from a horse that's been, raucous and, I've heard lots of tales of that. So, as I've said, we have to put this into context. And Sir Mark Todd, he didn't look good, but he's been reprimanded, and that's that. But I honestly feel that you know, John said it a while ago. Who are we trying to appease here? Are we trying to appease the people that have never been involved in racing and wouldn't care about racing? Yeah. So, anyway.
I mean, I guess so, but I think you know, people are conflating now, you know, the whole sort of irresponsible gambling lobby with animal welfare, and it just paints a picture of a sport that is cruel to animals, in quotes, and encourages people to, you know, bet their mortgage money on the outcome. It's just the whole thing. The conflation of those two issues, I think, is problematic for racing. But I do agree. You know, I think there's any point in trying to appease people who aren't interested in it, but it's just not a good look. And I take all those points on, but it's just not a good look.
Yes, agreed. And I'm not condoning Sir Mark Todd whatsoever in my comments there. I'm just saying that I'm just being a bit realistic that, or you know, I kind of know what kind of goes off. Well,
that's it. I mean, there's some yards, you know, for a fact that not only goes off, but trainers wouldn't bat an eyelid if a lad in their care picked a stick up and braid a horse with it. Other yards, I mean, going back to the Lakes and Noel Merlis and that, if a lad had picked a branch up and whacked a horse with it, he'd have got a shouting stick across the jaw.
Yeah, too right.
Yeah.
So,
right, we'll move on to the Irish Joosing saga. The article today that I've read from Paul Kimmage. Jason Jackson's been on, and he said, how long before Paul Kimmage finally breaks down the door on Irish Joosing? That article today didn't reveal anything more than a filler episode in Line of Duty, but he did finally break Armstrong. He's not going to be pushed away, is he? And while we're at it, any more whistleblowing update from the National Stud scandal? Well, I can tell you on that, Jason, that it's in the hands of a national newspaper as it stands. They contacted me a while ago, and I'm leaving it to them. They've got better snouts than I have, and they will hopefully release something. Forget the Racing Post. They're interested in none of the above.
they want the stallion adverts, don't they?
Yeah. So I can tell you now, a national is on the case with this, the National Stud. Anyway, on to Paul Kimmage. He's obviously banging the Irish dope drum and getting this out there. And Stephen Marn, the disgraced banned racehorse trainer for horse welfare, he's basically been on the case, texting Lynn Hellier all sorts. I have read bits. I've not had a chance to read the full articles and stuff, but it sounds. Jim Bolger basically, when he made those comments last year about doping in Irish racing, I think Jim was quite took aback in that everyone's like castigated Jim. In other words, castigate the accuser, but let's not follow this up, because I think if you read the transcripts of this article from Paul Kimmage, it's clear what's going off, really, that it is pretty rife. And it's just obviously you can't. It's proving it. It's getting, you know, it's getting the absolute concrete evidence. But aren't we all surprised, chaps, that there was no big backing for Jim last year?
No, because
Not at all.
Fuck Jim.
Yeah, fuck him. Fuck him and the horse he rode in on.
Jim's all right, isn't he? You know, I mean, Jim doesn't care. He's got plenty, and he's not bothered. And he can say what he likes, Jim, can't he?
Yeah.
You know, and whatever Aidan says about pub talk and all the rest, he just bounces off Jim. It's rubber bullets, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so there was nothing for any of them to gain by siding with Jim. You know, and the rest of racing just did what the rest of racing would be expected to do and closed ranks and poo-pooed any comments that might cast aspersions. You know, which is what you expect, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with this Steve Martin, I mean, reading that article today and all the nasty little shites he's kept company with over the years, I can't believe I haven't bumped into him on any of my annual trips to Cardiff. You know, I've been going over to see the Erlings and what have you, you know, I mean, because I've mixed with some right shite myself.
That'll get quoted. I've mixed with some right shite myself.
Oh, I can't believe I bumped into him, to be honest.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously he's a shithouse, but I mean, the thing is, obviously, the thing is, if you read, and I urge everyone to read it, and if you're short or a link, just message the Bartridges on Twitter. I'll send you the link. It's just quite enthralling that Stephen Mann was texting Lynn Hillier, the details quite impressive, really. So he's kind of trying to explain what's going off. And obviously, do I believe? Obviously, you can discredit somebody like Stephen Mann, like Michael Toms has pointed out on Twitter. He said he's very easy to discredit and rubbish off as being someone bitter. You're bitter, you've been banned. But I mean, genuinely, as an onlooker, I believe Stephen Mann on this. Without doubt.
Yeah, he's a tainted witness, but it doesn't mean to say he's a liar, does it? You look, police informants are not, generally speaking, very nice people, but it doesn't. But they rely on the information because a lot of the time they're right. Yeah. And this has the look and feel of something that's genuine.
Yeah, no, it's following on from last week. Obviously, we covered Seth Fishman and Wesley Ward in America about how Seth Fishman beat the drug testing, so he could develop drugs that would beat the testing, any testing. Now, that's very dangerous. I mean, you've seen Charlie Appleby strike it. You've seen what he's doing. He's got more ammo now than in fact, going forwards this year, John, as well, Manobo, the tackle they've got going forwards for this year is just what a battalion. And I mean, who's to say they're not, who's to say they're not involved with the Seth Fishman thing? I mean, as I said, it's. He said he got contacts in the Arab Emirates. So basically, why would they be left out? I mean, again, we'll end up getting sued, but that's the point. That all this, it's a bit like athletics. Russian Olympic Committee. It's. They know there's drugs rife in athletics. They know there is, blah, blah, blah. But what the hell do you do about it all? And I think to close your eyes and just pretend it's not there, like some of our racing media do, I think it's disgraceful. I think sometimes you should call it out, and you should just, when things are abnormal, you should say that's just abnormal. You don't have to say
it was inconceivable that doping doesn't go on in UK and Irish horse racing, because if you say it doesn't, you're asking people to believe that English and Irish racehorse trainers hold themselves to a higher moral standard than people in other aspects of sport around the world. And that's just nonsense. Absolute baloney. Most sort of elite sport has been tainted by performance enhancing drugs at some point. Athletics, you said gymnastics, cycling, tennis. There's always been rumours about certain top players, etc., and their ability to maintain, high standards of performance, over a lengthy period of time. So by saying there's nothing in UK and Irish horse racing is frankly ludicrous. Of course there is. To what extent, who knows? But it is going on. 100% somewhere in Ireland and England, there are performance-enhancing drugs that are undetectable and are being used. That's reality.
Yeah. I mean, Paul. I'm hoping Paul Kimmage reveals much more and more juicy stuff. Obviously, they're having to use pseudonyms. Obviously, John Doe has called all this.
John Doe's had a right pad.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, he must be using stuff left, right, and centre. He's going to be off for life, isn't he?
Paul John Doe
will be prosecuted, poor Bill. I tell you, terrible.
We'll move on to the single customer view. Just briefly on this, couple of suggestions on it. John Nolan has been in touch. Swarfiga John. He said he's tried to get £75 each way, non-runner no bet, on a single figure price horse for the Fez. Most he was allowed with any one of the 5 books was £16.66. Throwing the possibility of affordability checks on his wife's accounts, will be betting odds and evens up the alley this time next year. And yes, John, seriously, we're in desperate times. This isn't going away soon. It will get worse before it gets better again. I'm sick and tired of the racing channels and the racing media promoting bookie reps saying this has been well back, this is that. We know that this is just not possible in any shape or form because of the software they're using to ban customers online. Literally, any money they're taking is probably from from piggyback accounts, etc., or just absolutely wagons, rich wagons that basically they're just taking money off every day. And it's a sad state of affairs that the racing channels and the media itself aren't covering. There's no voice for punters. We've got anti-gambling lobbies, we've got bookmakers, we've got MPs, some MPs denouncing betting as a pastime, and we've got no one, not the Gambling Commission, no one is sticking up for everyday punters that basically just like you said, what is wrong? John Nolan wants a number and a bet each way. Cheltenham Festival, who cares? 75, he's a decent punter, but not a massive punter.
No.
Why is he not accommodated?
Because I mean, I absolutely agree with everything you say, but it's rich now that the restrictions and the single customer view is only attracting media coverage now, in sort of isolated pockets, when certain journalists at the Racing Post have got the gall to squeal like stuck pigs, that they're being restricted and they're being asked to send in information. And yet 2 years ago, those journalists said nothing. And in fact, they were writing columns about how they're having 800 quid each way on second favourites in novice hurdles, whilst their readers were being restricted to pennies. And you know who those people are. And why did they do nothing? Because the Racing Post was benefiting from advertising revenue for bookmakers. Well, look, we get that. That's how newspapers operate. But they're also getting unrestricted accounts with the likes of 365 and everyone else. So whilst they can get on, no problem. Now they're getting squeezed. Isn't this terrible? They're 15 years too late. Because that ship has sailed. And I think it's rich that these people are suddenly appearing on television and tweeting and writing articles. Oh, isn't it awful? Well, everyone's been saying that for well over a decade. But they were getting on. And you remember the column that, not singling him out, but Richard Birch's punting week. He had a check for $8,000 from Bet365. And Steve Palmer on a Sunday night was having $5,000 on a fucking 20-1 chance golfer that was $3. All that kind of stuff. Yeah. Where people were betting pennies, but it didn't affect them because they were getting on.
Exactly. That's a very good point. And this is the thing where we're stuck in a perpetual cycle. So it'd be interesting to see where this goes. But I can assure you, John, myself and a few others, we've got an MP behind the movement against the single customer view and against affordability checks. And we think that there's every chance that this can be certainly derailed. So keep your eyes open for that. We are definitely on the right path behind the scenes on that one. Regarding Johnny 2, he says, isn't it time we should be boycotting all the betting operators, and go to the TERT? Well, Johnny 2, I've got a suggestion here for the TERT, right? Go 5%. Go 5% on all markets, 5% pulls, right? You'll attract the flounderers, the pros, the part-timers, and also do a booster race of the day. Pick a good class race like a Class B, not the Ben Allen Rogers races. Pick a Class B, get King Kong involved, get a Whirlpool involved. One race a day in the UK. Pick the best, most competitive Class B, Class C handicap or whatever you've got on that day, and make it the race of the day. Where you're offering 5%, but that appeals to your King Kongers, your Australians betting at 5% the money, and it creates big pulls. And that's your experiment in taking the TERT further to 5% gambling, which again will attract big pulls going forward. The pulls will start growing. That'll attract more money as your pulls grow. That attracts more because people think, right, we can get a decent bet at a price. We can watch the odds close to the off. Is this attractive? This is all good for racing. So TERT, 5% across the board. Harry Finley's got a similar model at Lifford. That's why he's took over Lifford with some partners. The screaming kilts involved, much to John's disgust. But that's the same project there. Going to be like 5% TERT, potentially. And that will then basically create big markets, that's the business model, and I think that's where that can revive racing. So the nanny goat need to get involved here while the times are hot. Just to finish the show then this week, Philbo Bagshot's been on, and he wants to know, John, why is Nichols referred to as Pumpkinhead, and why Henderson Popeye?
Well, with Nichols, if you just Google Pumpkinhead and then click on images, you'll see why he's called Pumpkinhead.
Yes.
And Popeye's just a long-standing one with Henderson. Whenever he's appeared on the telly pissed up, it looks like his eyes are going to pop out of his head.
Yeah.
He does. You can see the full whites of the eyes about 4:30 in an afternoon at Newbury.
Yeah.
You know, when he's giving his final interview, and like you say, you see the whites of the eyes, don't you?
The 17th Hennessy's always the one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Marty Feldman, isn't it? Yeah.
So there you are, Phil Bagshot. Right, that's cracked a brilliant show. Myself, John, and Chris have really enjoyed this one. So thanks for your questions, because you make it, and you've made us enjoy a very dreary Sunday evening. That's all from us. We're back on Friday with all the crap tips. That's all from us. Bye for now.
Right, the show's over, boys. Thank you very much.